Well, welcome to the Tuesday, May 8th informational meeting here at Carnegie Town Hall. First item on our agenda is City Council open discussion. Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick note that we will not be having Land Use Committee. We won't be meeting next week, so I think it'll be a pretty full agenda the way it is, but
yes, it will be.
Heads up for that, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, I have a report on a subcommittee of the UDC. It's called the Transportation Coordination Committee, and this is a committee that's responsible for processing applications and giving out grants to organizations around in the city and the MPO for transportation processes. We had a first round of applications. I think we had about $180,000, $160,000. I guess I could look it up in here, but I will leave it for everybody. But Lifescape and Southeast Behavioral Healthcare all got some money for either operations or equipment. Usually these are vans that are set up for handicapped individuals. And then Community Coordination Transportation System, which is the river, well, it's the new transportation organization that is taking on some of the paratransit that is the Sioux Falls paratransit can't take on. So they were all awarded some money to continue their fine service. We are doing the committee is doing a survey, and I picked up 3 or 4 of them that I'm going to put back over there. And anyone who would like to can fill it out and bring it or mail it in or bring it out to the CCOG building, and to be happy to count it as part of the survey that they're doing. Senator Belcock gave us a couple of minor things, some minor route changes, some very minor changes. Sam's annual report and the state fair and revenue study, which is I'll leave here also, which is really interesting, indicating where fares are. Not necessarily dollar-wise, but what bus routes are busiest, at what times, et cetera, et cetera. And then Jim Feeney is the new coordinator with CCOG for transportation. He's new, takes over Amber Gibson's place, who is now a city employee up in the finance department. So you want me to keep going, or should I stop at this?
Well, here I was thinking that we had heard our last UDC from you a few weeks ago, but it's nice to end on a positive note, Councilor Rolfing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other items for open discussion? I do have one, and I'll mention it now. Just a reminder, we have a reception this evening beginning at 6 to honor Councilor Urbanbach, Councilor Rolfing for their service to the city of Sioux Falls the past 8 years. So hopefully we can all attend, and those that are viewing might wish to attend, but we look forward to that. And thank you very much for your service, and this is your last informational.
Question. Will there be wine at the...
Not in a box.
Oh, okay.
So no, the answer is no. Okay, none at all, just to make that clear. Okay, we have seen no other items of open discussion. We have one presentation on the agenda, and that's a Carnegie Broadcast and Presentation Equipment Replacement presentation by Brett Matheson. So, Brett, welcome.
Brett Matheson, Multimedia Manager, here to talk about the end-of-life replacement of the equipment that was installed in 2012. We are replacing all of the equipment, including all of the wiring, Cat5 cables, from scratch. The things we are keeping, the projector, the screen, the 2 side monitors. Some things that we are replacing that were not originally installed in 2012, all of the dais and microphones. We're putting in some sound reinforcement for the dais. We are also adding a rack in the equipment rack area to separate the equipment out. Everything was put into one rack because of space, and it causes the equipment not to get the airflow it needs, so we're splitting that equipment out. We're moving the control room operator over to the room that's right adjacent to it, just to give a little more room to that control room area. We are also adding an audio mixer to the system. Currently, the system, when it was installed in 2012, there was not put a control system for the audio. We could turn the microphones up from a master or down, which would cause feedback, of course, as we started to increase it. So we are putting in an audio mixer where the operator can bring the volumes up without affecting the room sound and causing getting that feedback. We've already upgraded the power system. We've put in a system that conditions the power. We've had significant problems with power over the years, and we've replaced several power supplies. We've had to replace the little Crestron monitor over there, sent in for repair. We've also had recent failures. You know, as equipment hits the end of life, our main piece of equipment is the video switcher. And that video switcher is running on a Windows XP system. And in fact, during the recent council debate, that thing locked up twice on us, and we had to reboot it live during the broadcast. So we're doing this prior to having expensive repairs that could also affect our ability to broadcast. And it's been in the capital budget since 2015. We have met with some of the council staff to look at what things we could improve with this upgrade, and you know, open to any questions.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you, Brett. When you said Windows XP, all the IT people in the audience snickered. You could just hear it. Just one brief question about what your definition of sound reinforcement in the dais is. I believe this is probably for Councilor Rolfing, but I just want to be sure I understand what that means.
So right now we use these speakers here, which run right into your microphones, and so as we turn that volume up, it causes that feedback. And so they're going to put little speakers at each location, and when you unmute your mic to speak, it actually does not send your audio through that speaker, but when a counselor on this side speaks, it does send that through the system, so we don't get that feedback.
Cool. I guess the important thing for my colleagues to understand is that this technology does wear out. It's not something that lasts forever. You know, as much as we would like it to, it's not like your RCA TV that you had 50 years ago that would last for forever and ever. So I just would encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of this. It is an important part of our service to the citizens and the quality of the programming that we're able to provide for them. So thanks, Brett. I appreciate the presentation.
Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I am the one. I started in about 3 months after I started this in 2010 saying, I can't hear sometimes when people are there. They tried turning these up, didn't work. Tried a number of things and just nothing ever worked. Now the microphone there that you're at the podium will also, when I've got my mic muted, it will come through.
Absolutely.
So I can turn mine up to volumes unheard of so that I can make sure I hear things.
We'll
but I won't be here, so it won't make any difference.
We'll actually set that for you. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councilor? One more. Go ahead, Councilor Rolfing.
What little room downstairs are you talking about? The green room?
So it used to be the locker room.
Oh.
And we've put a doorway just from the control room into that little area, and I'd say it's maybe 5 feet by 5 feet. It's a pretty small area.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you. Being in the industry I'm in, I'm obviously very aware of life cycles of technology and having to replace it, but there are a lot of pieces to this, so I'm just trying to sort of work through the contract. The server racks seem generally a no-brainer. That's not a problem. What pieces are, well, of the pieces we're talking about replacing, what is the, because I'm not a TV person, what would you expect out of this equipment? I mean, you know, obviously, like with the desktop computer, 5-7 years is incredibly long for a life cycle. But what about this stuff? How long should it last?
5-7 years on most of the equipment is about as long as I like to keep equipment. It starts to break down, and repairs of video equipment, especially if you have to send in like a Sony robotic camera, you could pay as much as 1/3 of the cost on a repair. And then how fast do you get that turned around? I mean, one camera going down, we could keep operating. The video switcher goes down, we're in big trouble. If the Crestron system goes down and has to be sent in for repair, that even controls your ability to switch inputs and use the monitors, and you know, that's kind of the brain of the system. That would have a significant impact on things. So, and then the third thing is the biamp audio system, which again, computer software, you know, audio cards, and if that were to go down, our microphones, you know, system goes down. And again, repairs on this type of equipment, it's that how long is it out of service, and then it's the actual cost to repair, and that's what we're trying to you know, diminish the cost of those repairs.
So we're talking about upgrading to Cat 6 cabling. What would be, in this particular world, what is the value add in replacing all the cabling? Is it required? Is it good? What do we get for it?
The main reason to replace the cabling is, you know, in the past 3 years, 4 years, we have replaced several cables because they've just gone bad. Ends have been bad. I don't know what the original cause of this was, but because we've replaced so many cables, I hate to be putting in brand new equipment and then have cables cause, you know, additional issues.
I could probably go on with multiple, but the TV screen thing that we're talking about, putting the new screen so we'll have kind of the, you know, be able to see two things at once.
Yep.
Is that a nice thing? Is that integral to the rest of the deal, first of all, or is it just kind of a nice value add?
Trying to make improvements. Right now,
cost, I'm sorry. What is the cost of that?
I'd have to look at the sheet or defer to ABI has also come in today. But it's one device in the equipment rack that takes the signal we send to the cable company and then the signal that we see up on the screens, and it allows you to see, you know, about 70% of the screen would be the main presentation, and then you'll be able to see what's being sent to the cable company. A few $1,000s, I would estimate.
Yeah, it would be nice to know the number. Now, I'll tell you the track I'm going down. Obviously, I'm sitting here flipping between inputs. I do it sometimes. And, you know, it's not optimal. So having the split screen would be a nice thing. But with anything, there's a cost-benefit analysis.
Right.
You know, like if I have a TV with 3 HDMI inputs and I need 4, I can buy a $20 splitter, or I can go buy a new $1,000 TV. So I have to make that. So if you tell me it's $10,000 to get this, that's one thing. If you tell me it's $135,000 to do all of this just so I can have split screen, I got to think about it. And that's what I'm trying to.
Right. The monitors are a little extra. They're extra wide monitors, and those cost about $40 more than the type of monitor you have right now. So pretty insignificant cost.
What kind of infrastructure are we talking about, I mean, to make this happen, over and above what we'd already get?
It's just this one device that basically combines the two sources and then sends out one source, and then that one source comes upstairs and gets into a distribution.
And while we were waiting, I guess, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead.
So what I'm trying to get to is I'm looking at the whole thing and trying to figure out, and again, it's not that I'm opposed to it, I'm just kind of wrestling with each piece, is trying to figure out, do we have a few things breaking, and so we need to get those fixed, and then we're just piling on a bunch of other nice stuff, and we just, you know, I'll give you a perfect analogy. Years ago, we busted a rim on our car, and it was going to cost $1,000 to repair it. And we were in our 20s. Could have fixed it for $1,000. The car was worth $12,000, so it would have been worth doing. But we just, let's just buy it. We just bought a new car. So we fixed a $1,000 problem for $25,000, you know, because it was just all this nice stuff and all the new bells and whistles and whatever. Sure. So it's just trying to figure out, you know, is it, you know, trying to balance that being responsible with tax dollars versus.
Sure.
You know,
It was originally installed for $253,000.
Okay.
And so we've jumped that a small amount, well, about $40,000 or so. But what we've done is we've added things like the microphones, which I think are key. We've had some failures even with the bases on the mutes. We've added the control of the audio, which is another thing that we think is fairly important. And so we're not trying to add big bells and whistles. It is a very complicated system. Crestron especially is very complicated. I think the cost on the dual screen has we're trying to fix some issues that we've seen. And for example, right now the feed you get when you're watching the cable channel is sometimes delayed, and trying to make it more efficient for the council members up here. But we're not adding a ton of bells and whistles. We didn't jump, for example, to 4K. We're staying with regular HD cameras and HD system. And
I'll defer for others in a second, but you are at the life cycle time where you would replace all this anyway, I take it. I'll let them get that.
$4,200, and that includes all the monitors for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very small part of this entire pie.
Right.
Okay, I'll defer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselor? Sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go in a couple of different directions, but the one that I think I want to start with is take me through, I know when we talked a little bit about what the service agreements and the service contracts that we're adding, and when I went through it, I kind of got into that 70,000 range for service contracts. Tell me about how long that is and the prepaid service that we're getting as part of this, and what the requirements were from the front end when we started this process of what we were looking for in service agreements.
What are you referring to, service
agreement? And that was the hardest part, is the contract's 30 plus pages. So by the time I dig into it and trying to figure out what are we getting for the service end of it, is there a service, let me do it that way.
Sure.
Is there a service agreement, and what were the requirements when we sent out the RFP of what we were looking for people to respond, and then what did they respond with? 1
year of support, bumper to bumper, hardware and software. They need to be on site. They need to be on site within 4 hours. And that was one of the main things. We've had instances where there's problems at a 4 o'clock meeting, and we need to get somebody here by the 7 o'clock meeting to get things supported. So that's part of it. That's included in the 1 year. And then beyond that 1 year, we have the option to go 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I believe if we did the full 6 years, I think it was estimated around $81,000. When we get to that point, I generally look at self-insuring the equipment. Just like the equipment, we've hit 6 years. If we could have spent $81,000 supporting the equipment, I'm guessing we're probably closer in the $15,000 for this whole time period.
My issue, I guess, more as much of a statement in this, from the one side, if we were talking about what we wanted to invest $300,000 in, this still, if I'm not mistaken, we're not solving, still can't watch the broadcast on my phone. I still can't, I know those issues are with Sire, and that's where some of this is coming from. Would we be able to take the equipment that we're replacing and move some of it to the overflow room, so if we did choose to do working sessions and wanted to record them as part of that, improving the sound that's in the overflow room, is that something, would that take much more to do? Was that something you considered when you looked at the RFP process?
We did consider that, and we've had some conversations. My first recommendation would be, if you want to be around a table, really look at bringing in a table here. We would not have to pay anything extra if this room were used for equipment, hardware. If you brought in tables here, we'd just bring in extra microphones, but we could use all of the existing cameras. So that would be the most cost-efficient way to do that. But then if you really did want to be in the multi-purpose room, we would add cameras, microphones. We would then run the cables back down to the control room. We would add either a switch or a patch panel, and then we would use all the existing switchers, sound mixers, the closed captioning system. All of that equipment would get used in live stream. And then just on the question on the live stream, there is one live stream available that we are outputting that is, tablet and mobile friendly on all devices, but just live.
Okay. And one of the other things when we talked is, I'm trying to compare what the county's doing and what we're doing.
Sure.
They were under $50,000 to update some of their things, and obviously they don't have the Cadillac version that we're going to end up having by the time they have more of a Chevy. But tell me the difference between, how do I explain to constituents that they can broadcast their meetings and do everything they need for under $50,000, and we need to take 300 plus use some existing equipment and get me there, I guess.
Sure.
How do I sell that?
We help them select that equipment, and the company we have selected actually did the install for the county. We actually broadcast for the county their live meetings. They deliver a thumb drive with the video file after each meeting, and we rebroadcast that for them. Their upgrade was primarily 3 cameras and a small video switcher. So the biggest difference, of course, there are no monitors for the commissioners. There's no projection. There's no crest runner unit, which is expensive. Our crest run even has the ability to tie in a phone line so that you can get professional expert opinion via phone. They don't have that capability. We have the ability to close caption, and we do close caption the 7 o'clock meetings and special meetings like State of the City. They don't have that capability, and so it really is quite a bit different equipment. Even the cameras don't need the zoom and the extra power that basically our cameras have.
One more, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'll finish up. The other thing we talked about was a little bit of analytics. Were you able to put some data together for us? How many people watch on a regular basis? What,
Very tough for us to get those analytics because the current Sire page, for example, just tells us how many people go to the page. Then we have our live stream, which has some numbers there. But then we know it's also being re-streamed by other organizations, so we don't know how many people are watching it from, say, the Argus, if they were streaming it. So we don't know what theirs is. And then we don't get analytics from Midco. And VAST are the two that we don't get analytics for. And someday we're told that we'll be able to get those.
Okay, Councilor Ralphie.
I just want to make a comment from my friends over at Minnehaha County and Councilor Starr that one of them told me that their new megaphones are going to be really nice.
Should I ask? Are there any more questions? It is.
I'll let it go.
Councilor Erickson.
Remind me the date the original equipment was put in.
2012.
Okay.
And then we added it to our capital plan in 2015.
Correct. And it cost approximately $250,000 back in 2012.
Correct.
Okay.
And,
I mean, we're not talking about a huge difference from back when it was installed in 2012 versus now. And I know we're not gutting everything, and we're not, but we are making some substantial upgrades. We're making some upgrades up here, working through some of that. So I just was curious about the exact numbers with that, so thank you.
And it is paid for and primarily from franchise fees.
Go a little deeper with that, will you?
So franchise fees are collected from Midco, and a portion of those funds are reserved for PEG channels, and so a portion is reserved for the capital for CityLink equipment, and then the other portion is reserved for K-Learn or the school channel, and then the rest of it goes into, I believe, the general fund. And I believe it's right in the just shy of $1 million a year is collected in franchise fees.
Thank you.
Okay, before we go to Councilor Nice, Councilor Staley.
And also, for the citizens, would you just explain about the bidding process and how many people actually put in a bid for this?
So we did do the RFP process and posted it publicly, and we received one bid back.
And I had heard we were just taking local bids, is that correct?
No, and it was open to anybody. The key was just to be able to have support on site within those support times. That was one of the issues when it was installed in 2012. The company was actually out of the cities, and so getting support was us on the phone while they're telling us what to unplug and what to do to support it, and then they would send somebody that they would find local out, and then after that they would send somebody from Minneapolis for the repair, and that time is just too long to get this equipment. I mean, we need it up and running for that meeting or the next meeting.
Okay. Councilor Neitzer.
How much was the service contract part of it again?
We have the option to extend a year, but it is included in the price for the first year. And then the second year, I believe, is, which is under the first year, I believe it's like $8,000 if we want to do the full hardware and software support. And then we can go up to 6 years. And so if you did the whole 6 year, I believe it was in the 80,000 area.
But every year you have the option to exercise that or not?
Yes.
And
Yep.
so as a
And right now, our contract is basically we pay a certain hourly rate, and then we pay for the hardware for the current equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Starr.
Yep. If I'm putting this all together in the right way, really our problem right now, if you look at what we're having difficulties with, is the video switcher.
Video switcher, the Crestron, when we just did a power down this past week, we could not get the Crestron back up, so AVI actually came in and was able to get it up and running for us. Recently, it's been the bass on the microphone mute. For some reason, we have shorts in these microphones, and so they've had to rewire the microphones. The laptop has a device that sends the video down to the control room and back up. That device stopped working, but we had another one under there that used to work for a DVD player, so we just switched over to that. I believe we replaced 15 power supplies. The video switcher, internal power supply failed. It has a redundant power supply, so that one kicked in, but it wasn't cooling the system. So one night during the 7 o'clock, I stood behind the rack with a fan with the video switcher open, hoping that we would get through the end of the meeting before, and we were able to get a new power supply overnighted in and replaced.
The other thing, we were updating from XP, obviously. Are we going all the way to Windows 10, or where are we headed in that direction?
We're getting away from that switcher to a whole different make and model from.
So it
from
wouldn't be a
Ross.
XP or a Windows 10 based.
No, and that particular, while we can get software and hardware updates, it does come with free lifetime phone support with its other company. It also is a switcher made for legislative, so it specifically is made for government, and it's much easier to use than our current system. Our current switcher is very complicated.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Just one final comment, thought, that this system is one of those keys to that government transparency that people keep tossing around all the time. This is one of those ways that everyone in this city gets the opportunity to be here with us on Tuesday nights, and I just think it's that important that even and that we recall how much this room is used every week. I mean, it's not just us that's in here, and we work it pretty hard, I think. But even just the buttons on the microphones anymore, you gotta really work it to make sure the button is going to turn on. So on behalf of the citizens, I think this is a really critical piece that we take care of. I'm glad that we're thinking about it as deeply as we are, but I think we'd better get to that point where we understand this is part of how we communicate with our constituents. So thanks for the presentation. Thank you guys for being part of it and being local so that we really can have that great service that I know that we get from this team. So thanks.
Are there any other questions? I have one comment of my own, and I would agree with Councilor Erpenbach, and I think we've had a great discussion here this afternoon, and thanks for coming and sharing additional information with the council. I know you stated, Brett, that we have one or two, we've got a few issues now that we're dealing with. with the age of the equipment, is it likely 6 months from now we're going to have a few other issues? The reason I ask is because I go back to Councilor Neitzert's analogy with the vehicle. They fixed a $1,000 vehicle with a $25,000 solution. But that $1,000 cost could have added up with next month's it's another $1,000, and after it could happen 3-4 times. Then you still end up having to get rid of the vehicle after you've invested now $5,000 in it, and you still have to buy your $25,000 car. So your cost has just escalated as a result. And are we looking at, that's basically what I'm hearing that we're looking at with this.
We've been looking at replacing this equipment for about 2 years. The problems have been significant over these years, and we've been able to fix them. We've been able to keep everything running. We were really hoping that May was one of the 5 Tuesday months. We were kind of hoping that we could have been through the whole process, the RFP, and been able to already have this replaced this month. July is our next opportunity where we have a 5 Tuesday month. You know, we kind of hold our breath every night. AVI has been here, I believe, 3 or 4 times this month with, you know, trying to keep equipment up. Again, the Crestron issue we had earlier this month. There's nothing we can really do with a video switcher. You know, it's definitely not supported and under warranty, and yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Brett, thank you very much. And I know that we do have other issues that we're dealing with that are being addressed, and hopefully they will be, I mean, the SIRE issues and being able to view them on phones and iPads and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, one last time we had the phone go off with Councilor Rolfing, and I wonder why that happened.
Turned it off.
I did not turn it on. I did not.
That was a
I'm buying right after the meeting.
that was a farewell from one of your colleagues, I believe. So, seeing that that was the only item on our agenda, this meeting is adjourned.